In the small town of Brookhaven, Oregon, the Landon family had just settled into their new home. The secluded house, surrounded by towering pines, had a rustic charm that Claire and Ryan loved. For their kids, Noah and Ava, and their loyal Labrador, Rusty, it was an adventure. Rusty, calm and protective, quickly adapted. Until one night, things changed. Around 3 a.m., Claire heard Rusty's low, rumbling growl. She brushed it off as an animal outside, but the growling intensified, steady and directed toward Noah's room. Claire sat up, nudging Ryan awake as Rusty's growl shifted to a soft bark, as if he were warning someone. Ryan sighed. He's probably just adjusting to the new place. They decided to ignore it, hoping it was a one-time thing, but it wasn't. The next night, at the same hour, Rusty growled again, louder. This time, it woke Noah, who called out scared. Claire hurried over, comforting him and reassuring that Rusty was just being a little overprotective. Yet, she couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Rusty had never behaved this way. On the third night, things escalated. Right at 3 a.m., Rusty's growl erupted into frantic barking, loud enough to wake the entire family. Noah sat upright in bed, clutching his blanket as Rusty stood outside his door. Fur bristled, his gaze locked on something unseen. Ryan rushed over, his face tense. "Rusty, stop!" he commanded, but the dog barely flinched, barking with urgency that sent chills down Claire's spine. "He's never acted like this," she whispered, worry tightening in her chest. They managed to calm Rusty, but his behavior left a tense silence. The next morning, the family, bleary-eyed, gathered in the kitchen. Noah looked tired and confused. "Why does Rusty keep growling at me?" he asked. Claire forced a smile. "Maybe he just needs time to adjust to the new house." That night, Rusty lay quietly by Noah's door, watchful but silent, as if he knew his warning had been heard. Lying in bed, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that they'd missed something important. As she watched the clock tick to 3 a.m., she held her breath and listened. The next few nights brought an uneasy calm to the Landon house. Rusty had stopped barking, lying quietly by Noah's door, but Claire couldn't shake the feeling that he was still on high alert, watching over them with a silent vigilance. One morning, Claire noticed small dirt marks near Noah's bed and faint scratches on the wall, as if something had scraped along the surface. A chill ran down her spine, her thoughts flashing back to Rusty's midnight warnings. The marks felt out of place, almost deliberate, as if something had been there. That evening, her worry grew, a nagging thought that maybe they were missing something crucial. That night, around 2:50 a.m., Claire lay awake, listening to every sound. Suddenly she heard it, a soft shuffling, like something brushing against the walls. She nudged Ryan awake, her voice barely a whisper. "Did you hear that?" His eyes met Claire's, a soft growl escaping his throat, as if he was trying to warn them. Ryan whispered, "Stay here. I'll check." He opened Noah's door slowly, but found only the calm of a sleeping child, undisturbed and peaceful. Yet, the uneasy feeling refused to leave them, hanging heavy in the air. The next day, still rattled, they decided to investigate the house's history. They reached out to Mrs. Delaney, a local historian familiar with Brookhaven's older properties. When Claire mentioned the address, Mrs. Delaney seemed intrigued. "That house used to belong to Elmer Grayson," she explained, her voice low, as if sharing a secret. "He was known for his obsession with warding off spirits. People said he kept journals about encounters with the supernatural." That night, every creak in the house seemed amplified, every shadow deeper. It was as if the house itself was harboring memories, secrets it wasn't willing to let go of. Around 3 a.m., the shuffling returned, louder, and this time accompanied by a faint whisper that sent chills down Claire's spine. Rusty, lying by Noah's door, rose to his feet, his growl low but determined. His gaze was fixed on a dark corner of the room where shadows seemed to gather. Ryan tried to calm Rusty, but the dog wouldn't back down, barking sharply as if daring whatever was lurking to show itself. In that moment, the air felt thick, and Claire could almost feel an unseen presence. A surge of fear gripped Claire as she turned to Ryan. "Maybe Rusty's been trying to tell us all along," she whispered, her voice shaky but resolved. "And whatever it is, it's in that corner." They both knew now this was no product of Rusty's imagination. The house held secrets, and something was indeed there, just beyond their sight, waiting in the shadows. By the time the next night arrived, tension in the Landon household was thick. Claire and Ryan tried to keep up their evening routine, but the house's history weighed on their minds. After putting Noah and Ava to bed, they waited, avoiding words, as if silence could ward off their unease. Around 2:45 a.m., Claire felt a knot form in her stomach, each tick of the clock amplifying the tension. Suddenly the shuffling began, louder, more distinct, like cautious footsteps moving just beyond view. Rusty instantly rose, growling low and fierce, his gaze fixed unwaveringly on Noah's room. Claire and Ryan rushed to Noah's door, hearts pounding in unison. Rusty was already there, his growl steady, his focus glued to that dark corner that seemed to harbor shadows. Claire took a deep breath, feeling a magnetic pull urging her closer. Just then, she felt a cold draft sweep across her face, sending shivers through her. She froze, clutching her arms as the chill sank in. Ryan took her hand, unease clear in his face. "Maybe we shouldn't." It stayed solid, but the air around it was charged, as if a presence lingered. Ryan grabbed a flashlight and pry bar, carefully loosening part of the wall. Dust rose as he peeled back a section, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay an old journal and a faded photograph. Rusty whined softly, his body tense yet curious. Claire took the journal, her hands trembling. One line leapt off the page. "The shadows seek him, the innocent one, the child." Her breath caught as she skimmed the pages, each detailing Grayson's sightings and fears. Ryan examined the photograph, his face paling. It showed a young boy, perhaps Noah's age, standing in what looked like Noah's room, shadows looming behind him. The boy's expression was solemn, as though pleading for help. Just then, a chill swept through, and the journal's pages fluttered. Rusty barked sharply, his stance protective, his gaze fierce, as if guarding against an invisible force. The air felt denser, and Claire could sense pressure, like hands pressing down on her. She stumbled back, gripping Ryan's arm. "We have to get Noah out of here," she whispered, her voice strained. Ryan needed no urging. He scooped Noah from bed, careful not to wake him. Together they moved out of the room, Rusty following, his body positioned between them and the corner, as if daring something to follow. In the hallway, they heard it, a faint whisper echoing like a distant voice calling. Claire's skin prickled as they hurried down the stairs and out of the house, Rusty vigilant at their side. Outside, Claire took a shaky breath, glancing back. The windows were dark, shadowed, yet she felt unseen eyes. "It's all tied to Grayson, that journal," she said, looking at Rusty. He knew. Rusty sensed it all along. In the morning, they returned with a local spiritual advisor who performed a cleansing ritual. Burning sage filled the air, and the house felt lighter, the shadows seeming to lift. Claire and Ryan watched, sensing the atmosphere ease. Rusty, ever watchful, stayed by Noah's side as the advisor worked, only relaxing as calm settled over the home. Days later, the Landons returned, keeping Grayson's journal safely stored, a reminder of shadows faced. Rusty resumed his place by Noah's door, his watch done. Whatever had haunted the house was gone, but they would always remember Rusty's loyal warning, a testament that love and protection can go beyond what is seen.